Yep, go ahead. Just let me know.
Oh, he'll start it.
Yeah, there we go. Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. Today's guest is Mark Goldston, Executive Chairman of the Beachbody Company, which trades under the symbol BODI. He's one of the world's most respected turnaround executives, reviving some of the best-known brands in the world during his career, including Revlon, Reebok, LA Gear, to name a few. Mark is also a prolific inventor with 135 U.S. and foreign patents to his name. He's an author, publishing The Turnaround Prescription in 2018. Mark has an illustrious award-winning career, and we're so happy to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you.
So Mark, you've had like this amazing career as a public company CEO, inventor, author. What happened in your formative years to kind of get you interested in business? Did you have like a big influence, or how did you, like in your late teens and 20s, how did you get into business and kind of get into that mode of really absorbing everything and understanding and getting into it?
It's a great question. When I was a kid, I grew up in Chicago, and then Atlanta, Georgia. And my father was one of the early pioneers of the discount retailing business. So the precursor to Walmart and Kmart.
Yeah.
And he worked for a big box chain of 80,000 square foot stores. And so he was my Little League coach. So on Saturdays for the ball games, we would go around and see the stores.
Yeah.
So I would tote around with him because we were on the way to playing ball. And long story short, I thought everything that was sold in the big box stores was made in the back room, because every time they needed something, they brought it out from the back.
Right.
So my dad said, when I grow up, that's what I want to do. I want to create the products. And he said, no, you want to own the retail stores that sell the product. I said, no, I want to invent the products. He goes, well, that's called consumer product marketing.
Yeah.
I said, well, that's what I want to do. So if I'm not going to be a shortstop for the Cubs, that's what I want to do. So I'm serious. I knew at 16 years old that I wanted to be a Fortune 500 CEO, and that my path was going to be through brand marketing. And I went to college, double majored in that, got a year of proficiency credit off my MBA at Kellogg, got my MBA at Kellogg, and I graduated Kellogg. I was 22 years old because I didn't have to go work. They let me in right out of college. So I was on my path, and that's where it started. So I was living, and my dad died right when I graduated Kellogg when I was 22. So he never got to see any of this. But that's how I got started. And I knew as a kid this is what I wanted to be.
So you progress in your career, and you get into these situations with like Revlon and Reebok and LA Gear, as I mentioned, and now Beachbody. How did you kind of become an expert in this? I'm sure it was almost by mistake, right? Where like something happened and you had to figure out how to get through it.
Yeah.
How did you become an expert in kind of the turnarounds, which you're largely known for?
Well, it's funny. I started out, as I said, my dad died when I was young, and you kind of lose your anchor.
Yeah.
And so some people would get very risk averse. I went the opposite way because my father died, he was 50 years old. So I'm such an exercise fanatic. I exercise 2.5 hours a day. I've been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
So I said, look, there's no guarantees in life. So I took the brand assignments that everybody said they wanted, but they really didn't want because the profile was high. And if you failed, it would be a fantastic flame out. And I figured, look, I was always the youngest guy in the room. So if God forbid I failed, I'd say, well, I was a little too young to have had the responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
You can fall off the ladder and say you shouldn't have climbed it, but at least I was on the ladder.
Yeah.
So I took these high profile brand assignments and it worked. It's like I was at Revlon, I was running the worldwide fragrance and skincare division. I was 27, 28 years old. I was 5 years out of business school.
Yeah.
And we repositioned the entire Revlon fragrance division. The Nielsen market share went from 9% to 18% in a year, and everybody started talking about it. And so all of a sudden I was, for lack of a better term, a commodity. And Fabergé had fired their president, and they were looking for a new president. So they interviewed me. I was in the General Motors Tower. Fabergé had just gone into this new building called the Trump Tower.
Yeah.
And the guy interviews me and he says, well, I'd love to make it a president. He said, but how old are you? And I said, I'm 30. He goes, well, I have kids that are older than you. I said, well, make one of them president. He goes, well, that's not what they do. He said, I'll make you the executive vice president. I won't hire a president. And if you can turn the company around, I'll put it in your contract and make it the president. I said, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So my now 38-year-old sons, my wife was pregnant with them when I did this.
Oh my God.
We turned around Fabergé, which was Brute, and Aquanet.
Yeah.
And a year later, I'm 31 years old as a Fortune 500 CEO of a consumer product company, and I'm 7 years out of the Kellogg School. It's like the movie Richie Rich. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
And so I basically took a high risk path. I bet on myself. I had great people around me. I had people who weren't really my mentors, but they were people that I looked for mentorship from. And I was at Johnson & Johnson to start my career. Jim Burke and Wayne Nelson, legendary business executives.
Yeah.
Then I went to Clairol, Dick Gelb, Bruce Gelb, Don, legends.
So you got to see it.
Yeah, and I worked for Michelle Bergerac at Revlon. It was the first $1 million bonus baby in business. And so, I was young. I grew up around a retail executive, so I understood that part of it. And, I was rolling 7s and 11s from a guy who doesn't gamble. It worked out.
Yeah. What are the common symptoms you see in a turnaround? I would imagine like going into a business that's kind of eroding a little bit. I have to think there's a lot of like management denial almost, or maybe paralysis of decision making. What do you see the most when you come into? You're almost like the EMT driving into a car crash, like no one can think straight.
Well, it didn't start though. So I started out doing marketing turnarounds.
Yeah.
Repositioning brands. That's what I did at Revlon, Fabergé. Then what happened was I branched out and said, I'm now going to start doing financial restructurings as well as, so it's left brain and right. You don't usually have that. So I went to Odyssey Partners, which was a great LBO firm on Wall Street, as you can remember.
Yeah.
And I was one of the first, guys to be essentially an operating partner in that industry. And we worked with Weil Gottschall, who spoke here today, on the creation of what were called prepackaged bankruptcies.
Yep.
So we took busted LBOs,
Yeah.
and the SWAT team would go in as sort of super CEOs. We would help the management teams restructure, fix the company. And I said, wow, if I can pair this with the marketing side of the turnaround, it's like cut and grow.
Then you have something on your
Correct.
hands.
So I said, I'm going to write a book. So the dean of the Kellogg School, who was Don Jacobs, because I had been doing guest lecturing there, said to me, look, you need to write a book on this. So I wrote a book called The Turnaround Prescription. And basically, my pet peeve was you bought business books, and they would always tell you, if you see this, this is something very bad. But they never told you how to fix it. So I have symptoms, and then I have prescriptions. That's why the title is The Turnaround. So I looked at it and said, there's a lot of common elements here. When you're in a business and things go south, it's like being the coach of a team and it goes south. A lot of times you're either the last person to see it, or you're eternally optimistic and think it's a trend, but it's going to change. And it becomes imbued in the organization. And then you start seeing the symptoms. So I thought if I can document the symptoms and help CEOs do their own checklist, then I can help them potentially turn around their own company versus having to bring in someone like me to fix it. Right. The other thing, I was fascinated by a guy named Red Adair. You know who that is?
Yeah, I did. I do.
The guy who puts out all the derrick fires?
That's right.
Yes, I was fascinated. I was reading about Red Adair, and every time the oil companies would have a massive fire in the Gulf, they would call Red Adair, and he would go in. I said, there's got to be a little bit of a Red Adair on the business side. Without being draconian, but you want to know that the end game is not to cut to a carcass, it's to reduce the overhead so you can then grow the business and get the operating leverage. So I started looking for businesses that fit that profile, where they were undermarketed or they had fallen from grace. Because you got to remember something, bad businesses are not turnarounds.
Yeah.
Turnarounds are companies that were great and fell from grace.
Yep.
And you're going to turn them around. If they've never been successful, they're not a turnaround, they're just a bad business.
Right.
And the problem is you got to be careful that you're not a hammer and thinking everything's a nail.
Right.
You can't turn everything around.
Yeah.
So you got to really be judicious in what you pick.
It kind of takes a high EQ.
It does.
As IQ.
For
Like
sure.
reading the room and all that stuff.
Yeah, and people don't expect that when you come in and you're restructuring and cutting, that the next phase is going to be innovation and growth.
Right.
They think you're just going to leave it for dead.
You're
take
just
them.
like a hatchet.
Yeah, and I absolutely never wanted to be that.
Interesting.
No interest.
Well, you're doing it in a public vehicle, a public company, which is got to be very difficult.
Yes.
Requires a lot of communication, I would imagine.
It does.
Maybe talk about, for people who don't know the history of Beachbody, the origins of the company. What did it look like at peak revenue?
Yeah, it was, well into the billion two, billion three of revenue. At peak, it was probably 140 million of EBITDA. Yeah, it was rocking and rolling. They had 22 years of being super profitable. The company started out doing DVDs, and videos, then DVDs. Our co-founder and CEO, Carl Deichler, he's the guy who pioneered all this.
Yeah.
Carl created all of this.
Yeah.
And did an amazing job. What happened was the company then became a multi-level marketing company.
Right.
And they had hundreds of thousands of people selling the product.
Yeah.
And these are people who are part-time workers, soccer moms, you name it. And that whole industry, as you know, started to fall on hard times.
Also a perception issue.
Terrible perception.
Yeah.
And never say never. I always said I would never be involved with multi-level marketing, and then I got to go fix the company. It was a multi-level marketing company. But as soon as I came in, Carl and I, the board had a discussion. Said, look, we've got to get out of that business.
Yeah.
It's not going to be long-term viable, and it's way too expensive.
Yeah.
You have massive costs, massive compensation costs. You're paying people in perpetuity,
Yeah.
and they may or may not go to work tomorrow if they don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Not being critical,
Yeah.
it's a part-time gig. So we, in December of 2024, we shut it down. We shut down the MLM. We said we're going to be a multi-channel company. So direct-to-consumer, Amazon/marketplaces, affiliates, who are people who might have been part of a foreign network but just want to sell for themselves. You see influencers do this all the time. And then we're going to create a retail division for the first time. So I spent most of my career in consumer products. So we've taken our billion-dollar brand names, P90X,
Yep.
Insanity,
Everyone knows
Shakeology.
those two.
Yes.
Everyone in the world.
Huge
Yep.
60+% awareness.
Yeah.
And we've created a line of nutritional supplements with the P90X name, the Insanity name, and we've taken our multi-billion-dollar superfood shake called Shakeology, put it in a small form factor 7-serve bag, and we're going to sell that at retail. So we hired the largest retail broker company in America.
Yeah.
We had a brokerage at Fabergé. We were sold by brokers. And they're selling us into food, drug, mass merchant, club stores, and C-stores, starting this quarter and next quarter. So you will see P90X in a store. You'll see Insanity in a store. Never existed before.
Yeah.
Shakeology, which grew to 3.2 billion in cumulative sales, 1 billion servings, has never been sold in a store.
Yeah.
Now it will be. So my hope is that if you and I sit down 12, 24 months from now, we will have a formidable, popularly priced nutritional supplement business at retail. We will have energy drinks under the P90X and Insanity name at retail. We'll have these products available for sale direct to consumer, as well as our 140 program fitness library with 10,000 hours of video, which cost us over $500 million to produce.
Yeah.
So we have subscriptions that we sell to that, to join that. Then we can augment that with meal plans, augment that now with nutritional supplements. And we've taken the break even of our company to, this will blow you away. When I joined, it took $900 million of sales to break even on a cash basis. We've got it down to 180 million. We've taken the break even of the company down by $720 million. We've just had 8 consecutive quarters of positive adjusted EBITDA. We have made over $13 million of positive free cash flow in the 9 months of 25. And for the first time in a long time, the company was net income positive in Q3. So the turnaround is a year ahead of schedule. We financially turned the company around. Our cash at $34 million exceeds our debt by $10 million. We've lowered our interest expense by 44%. So now we can focus on this innovation pipeline. So now that we've got everything really tight and we've built all this operating leverage, we can launch these new products. And frankly, the efficiency that we built into the company, if we grow the top line 25 to 30%, we can double our profit.
Yeah.
That's how efficient it's become. So that's a true turnaround.
Yeah. And, I want to take you back to that board discussion, getting out of the multi-level marketing. Was that kind of a hold your breath moment when you kind of came out like, look, we're going to communicate this, we're going to change it, knowing that your revenues were going to decrease significantly? Like, what was that like, and kind of just that moment of change?
It's a fascinating question, because I don't know if it was a hold your breath moment. I think it was an elephant in the room moment.
Yeah.
I think prior to my arrival 2.5 years ago, people were watching the revenues from the MLM declining, saying, why is this? Well, look, Tupperware went bankrupt, Avon, I mean, you can go down the list of companies that did this. So I think when I came in, I basically was a flashpoint saying, I have a different perspective, I have a new perspective, I have to give that to you until I become not new and don't have the same perspective. And my feeling is, it doesn't really matter what our revenue is, because we're losing a lot of money. I mean, in 2021, like $228 million negative.
Yeah.
So like, you gotta get out of this. And so I look at it like this, if I were to analogize it. The old business model was like the Navy. Lots of people out there selling it. This is a SEAL team.
Yeah.
So the fact that the revenue today is 250 and it used to be 4 or 5, it's irrelevant. That was an MLM.
Yeah.
This is no longer an MLM. This has got a great financial structure, terrific margins, low overhead, high operating leverage, and very profitable.
Yeah.
So let's rebuild the company. Who cares what last year was? The only time last year will matter is in 2026, when we get to the second half, when you start anniversarying the new code and new code.
That's going to get people's attention.
Right. We started to be a new company January 1st, 2025. So anniversary of that. But what we were before is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because the company was different.
Why do you think you're a year ahead of schedule? What went right for you in an atmosphere where a lot could have gone wrong?
Well, one is our co-founder and CEO, Carl, who's the guy that built the company, has been incredibly open to looking at the issues of the company and not being defensive in any way, shape, or form, saying, look, this happens to be where we are. It's not anybody's fault. We have to do something about it. It's very unusual to come into a founder-driven company and find a founder who's that amenable to drastically fixing problems. A lot of times they want to will it to go away, and that doesn't happen. One. Two, I've learned this. Listen, when I went to net zero, we were like the hottest IPO of 1999. A year later, the internet melted down. Yeah. My stock had gone from a $3.2 billion valuation to $36 million. I had a 30.
You had it in there in your spreadsheet at home. This is like, oh my God.
And it was Armageddon.
Yeah.
Well, everybody else was too, but that's if you're dead on the battlefield, that doesn't matter. Right. And so I'm looking at this going, wait a minute. I have a 39-cent stock. I'm going to get delisted from the NASDAQ. I found another company, an outrival rival of ours called Juno, who had a 67-cent stock. So we merged the two companies together, created United Online. My stock was $1.06. Yeah. Wall Street Journal or Barron's, one of them wrote an article that said, Net Zero and Juno coming together as two skunks trying to breed a mink. Yeah. Meaning, this is 1 year later, the $1.06 stock was $16.50, number one stock on the NASDAQ. Wow. 1 year after that, it was $35. So I have been to this movie. Yeah. And the asset base of that company was nothing compared to the asset base of this. So we basically said, look, great library, great assets, terrific people, terrible structure, wrong business model. Yeah. Other than that one gunshot, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you like your seat at the play? So they were very open to change, and we did it as a team. It's not me doing it. Yeah. I was the flashpoint, but we did it, everybody had a buy-in, and here we are, 2.5 years into it, and everybody in the company is feeling really great about what we've accomplished, and that's why we're ahead of schedule, because everybody pitched in. Yep. They said, I'm not going to protect my fiefdom. I'm going to basically say, this doesn't apply to the new business model, so get rid of it.
Well, I would imagine people who've been there for a long time, they may only know MLM as a way to grow a business or as the way to sell product, but it has to be so incredibly exciting to have this whole omni-channel opportunity in front of you.
It is.
You know, like with brands, just mentioning the two that you mentioned, P90X and Sanity, I would imagine you could build whole portfolios around those brand names.
You could have a company.
You could have a company. Talk about retail distribution in general, maybe in greater depth, and how you look at pricing in this environment where the economy seems good, but it might be like wobbly or people are uncertain. Yeah. How does all that come together in your mind, and how do you do that without just completely hammering expenses as you build this whole thing out?
So, yeah, really good question. So the retail environment in general is obviously soft.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
Whether it's due to tariffs, you name it, it's soft. But that being said, there's $1 trillion of goods that are sold at retail. So
Yeah.
let's be real here.
You don't even know.
Whatever. Yeah, if you're trying to build a business that does 50, 100, pick a number.
Yeah.
I mean, you are a black speck of sand in the Sahara Desert. That is the consumer marketplace.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of people, there's plenty of volume to be done, and there's 504,000 retail outlets in America for you to sell at. So, the
Yeah.
little violin, we don't want to hear that playing.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, in terms of expenses, what we do, because we're so disciplined as a turnaround, and now it's been installed in the company as part of its fabric, its gestalt, is we will not get out over our skis.
Right.
In terms of purchasing inventory prospectively. We're going to get orders and we're going to commit those orders to production, and we'll keep some level of safety stock, but not a lot. So your expenses are under your control from a marketing standpoint. Instead of spending a lot more incrementally, we will redirect monies to these new green shoots. I'll give you an example. The most successful fitness program of all time is P90X.
Yep.
That's us. It's bigger than any name ever in the fitness, bigger than Beachbody.
For sure.
Okay, so we did a concept test. This will blow you away. We did a concept test on P90X nutritional supplements against the whole category and energy drinks. You know what brand ranked as the #2 most popular brand in the concept test? P90X.
Yeah.
Guess what? We don't make supplements.
Right.
We don't make energy drinks because the brand name was so well known. So if you and
That looks like a green flashing light for you.
100%. If you and I were going to launch a nutritional supplement line, it was called Mark and Tom's.
Yeah.
We'd have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to build awareness.
Yeah.
We've got a 62% awareness product.
Yeah.
So we don't have to overspend.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is when we go retail, we're going to be launching a new P90X Generation Next video series. So now for the first time in 15 years, there's going to be a new program. And what we're doing that's, I think, pretty brilliant is we're going to put a QR code on the front of every P90X nutritional supplement bottle.
Yeah.
They sell for $15 to $34. If you scan the QR code, you're going to get a $35 monthly P90X for free. So now you just bought a $34 whey protein tub. If you scan this, you're going to get a $35 value on the video alone.
Yeah.
So we're going to cross market. That's not been done. So if the BODI company, and the reason it's called BODI, by the way, instead of Beachbody,
Yeah.
before I got there, the quarter before, they changed the name because they wanted to be more relevant to just people beyond six-pack abs and big arms.
Yeah.
So it stands for Beachbody On Demand Interactive. That's the BODI. To further that strategy and to augment what we're going to be doing by branching out into retail, et cetera, we just launched something 3 weeks ago called the 10-Minute Body, where Carl and I got together and said, there's 185 million people in America, Tom, who are categorized as being overweight.
Yeah.
They don't exercise. 75 million are clinically obese. So showing them six-pack abs and big arms, they don't want to, they're afraid of it, they're self-conscious, it's too hard, and I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go to a gym because I don't like the way I look. So what did we do? We created 400 individual units under the aegis of the 10-minute body, 10-minute muscle, 10-minute core, 10-minute cardio.
Yeah.
So if you got 10 minutes a day, it's easy to do, it's fun, and it will help you get into your genes. It'll help you feel better. Forget about walking around on the beach with six-pack abs. We have a whole group of people who want that, and we've got a library for that. But don't conflate the two. So we've just opened up our addressable audience from 40 million people who exercise to 185 million people who don't, who now have a 10-minute, $10 a month solution. Hugely innovative idea, just launched, really excited because our mission is to help the health of every American adult.
I would have to think, given the brand awareness, your customer acquisition cost should probably be lower theoretically if you can, tell people the story, get the products out there.
Absolutely.
Gain the trust with everyone.
It's what you call derivative CAC, customer acquisition.
Yeah.
So your marginal customer acquisition cost will not be lower than the market because that's what a marginal customer cost is. But to your point, the more exposure that we get in a retail store with P90X and Sanity Shakeology products, we're building, it's media.
Yeah.
When you walk into an Albertsons and you see 5 facings of P90X, whether you buy the product or not, that's advertising. And so we're gonna end up with a bigger footprint, a broader audience. If I was gonna use financial terms, we will be diversifying our beta or our risk by having these multi-channels. And with our new operating structure, with only $180 million break-even level and all this operating leverage, if we can grow the top line efficiently, we will keep a disproportionate amount of that revenue as profit.
Yeah.
Whereas when I joined 2.5 years ago, if you didn't do $900 million of revenue, you couldn't make money.
Yeah. That's like,
So now it's all you got to do is 180 million to make money.
Yeah.
So to me, the exciting thing about this is being able to say you not only turned around a cost structure, a way of doing business, and an allocation of capital and your debt, but now you can turn around your revenue fortunes, hopefully, by launching a bunch of new products where you have the fuel to advertise them, and now you've got the infrastructure down so low that you can keep a disproportionate amount of what you sell as profit. That is the ideal turnaround.
Yeah, having been through so many of these in your career, it must be a real rush when you kind of go from that point where every day you wake up and you're playing defense to like, now we're on offense, which is pretty cool.
It's interesting you say that because I think about, Travis Hunter, who's drafted by the Jaguars, top pick in the draft. And years ago, there was Charles Woodson and Deion Sanders, obviously. Yeah. And you think about it, we were essentially playing defense for 2+ years. Yeah. But playing really good defense, obviously the turnaround.
As a public company,
100%.
Even more complicated.
Yeah, and people have short memories. I always say, you never say never, right? You don't want to do a turnaround on the public's watch because if you tell them it's a 3-year turnaround, after 6 months, when it's not turned around, they're like, well, what's going on? Yeah. It's like, I'm going to give you a scholarship to go to college, and I go to you after the end of your sophomore year and go, hey, Tom, what are you still doing in college? And you go, well, it's a 4-year curriculum. And you go, seems like it's taking an awfully long time. Yeah. Those are turnarounds. Yeah. So for us now to, for the last 8 quarters, be able to go on an earnings call and say that we're once again EBITDA positive. Now we're cash flow positive. Now we're net income positive.
You got a story.
It's a great story. And it just warms my heart because I'll tell you, when I joined, I'm an exercise. I exercise 2.5 hours a day. This is my life. And so I'm combining my avocation with my vocation, turnarounds and fitness. Yep. Now what's really cool about it is everybody, both inside the company and outside, has seen the new slimmer body, no pun intended. Yeah. And they're like, wow, now what can the company do? Yeah. As opposed to, is the company going to survive? Right. Are they buried under debt? The MLM is a bad word. Yeah. Okay, that's all gone. I mean, the market cap of the company, when it went public via the SPAC in 2021, was $3.2 billion. Yeah. Oof. The asset base of the company today is stronger than it was then. The break even of the company today is $720 million lower, and yet the market cap of the company is $90 million.
And I'm sure your IP portfolio, library, all the value of that. Who knows what the value is?
We did an outside valuation of the replication value of it's over $500 million. So you say, wow, you got $34 million of cash. So your cash is $10 million above your debt. Your library is worth $500 million plus. How could you put? But because the market doesn't know the story. You said to me before, how many people are touting the story? We're just now starting to really get it out there. Because we didn't want to talk about it before it was done.
Of course. So, nothing is linear.
Right.
It's like you have ups and downs during the process. And when you're reporting quarterly as a public company, this particular 90-day increment may not show as much progress as the other.
Correct.
So it's like kind of herky-jerky. I did want to ask you one question about the GLP, that market. How does that factor into your thinking and strategy with innovation and new products, and how does it all kind of fit together?
Well, I'm known for my puns, so can I use one?
I love it.
I think it's a shot in the arm, and maybe a shot in the belly.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. GLP-1 drugs were developed, as you know, for diabetics, try to get their weight down.
Yep.
It then became, for lack of a better term, a vanity drug, which got it broad scale. The number one warning that they put on a GLP-1 drug is what? It will cause major loss of lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
Well, when you're over 40 years old, what's the one thing you don't want to do?
That.
Lose that.
Yeah.
So we are the adjunct. We are the sidecar to GLP-1. If you go on a GLP-1 to lose weight, good for you.
Yeah.
But don't have you lose your muscle mass, lose your balance, start falling. You don't want that. So if you use BODI, and by the way, if you're overweight, you're self-conscious.
Yep.
You don't want to go to a health club with a bunch of fit people.
Yep.
And you think this is Mount Kilimanjaro.
Right.
You don't want to do it. But if you use BODI, it's in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah.
So you take your GLP-1, you use BODI to fortify your lean muscle mass so you won't lose your strength.
Yep.
And by the way, in 6 months, when you've lost the weight and you've maintained or acquired muscle, you're feeling completely different about yourself.
Oh, you're going outside with your shirt on.
Correct. And even if not, even if you're just getting in the jeans you couldn't get in last year, that's the thing. I think, and people talked about it as being woke, it's being comfortable in your own body. I don't think that's what it is. I think you have to understand there are those of us who love exercise.
Yeah.
And therefore we're fanatical about it. Okay, there's a lot of other people who don't love it.
Yeah.
But they would like to be thinner, and they would like to be healthier, and they would like to be stronger. But they don't want to go to a gym and spend, okay, well, guess what? Our job should be to make you the best version of you in your eyes. So what is it you're unhappy about? Well, I may have a little bit too much around my middle. We can help you with that. Well, I got a grandson or a child, and it's hard for me to lift them. We can help you with that.
Yeah.
I go for a walk on vacation and I climb up the steps of the Parthenon and I'm exhausted. We can help you with that. That doesn't mean you got to be walking around a beach with six-pack abs and big guns.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, but that's a group of people. We want to serve the entire. I always say when today somebody asked me, "What's your target audience for the BODI Company?" You know what it is?
Everybody.
Hold up your two fingers.
Yeah.
Put them on your left wrist.
Yeah.
If you can feel a beat, that's our target audience.
Yeah. If you can't feel a beat,
Then we don't need you.
all right. I have one last question
Yeah.
for you, and this is a good one. I think when you sit down with investors, I've been in a lot of investor meetings in my career, and sometimes the person across the table from me is like very quiet, and I always think like, well, if they're quiet, they're either like really smart or they really don't get it. When you sit down and you talk about the company, the value, the drivers, all of that stuff, and you're talking to an investor, what do you think they're missing when you kind of feel like, I'm not sure he or she really got that? What do they miss about the value of this business that's not reflected in the current market cap?
You're talking about BODI specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's very, very interesting. We have largely been meeting with, historically, small cap and mid cap investors. They love, when we tell them the story, they love it and they get it. They always say, I have an expression, Tom, unseen plus untold equals unsold.
Yeah.
Which means if you can't see it, you don't talk about it, no one's going to buy it. And so they will say to us, wow, we did not know this story. Part of the issue, though, is they're not buying micro cap stocks. They're buying small caps and mid caps.
Yep.
So it's kind of like when you grow into our level, we would love to invest. So what we did about 6 months ago is we pivoted and we started focusing more on micro cap, retail, smaller investors, because that's where we are now. It's not where we're going to stay.
Yeah.
And so our stock was $3.30
Yep.
in May, and it went up as high as $12.50 a couple weeks ago, and now it's in the tens. So we have, but we are now going after the people who are right for owning the stock where it is today.
Yep.
When we graduate, we are educating small cap and mid cap people who, when we can reach a certain market cap level, they can and will invest. The other thing was, while you were an MLM, a lot of people didn't want to invest in your company.
Right.
And a lot of pension
Very
funds
good
went.
point.
So now we got rid of them. So we have kicked off all the mud from the flaps.
Yep.
I like to say the sprinter no longer has ankle weights.
Yep.
And now we just got to go and use our partners, whether it's ICR, some of our other partners, and you guys do an amazing job for us, and you've been with us for several years. But we've got to say, look, this is the audience. Because part of the problem is like marketing a product. If I market you a shaving foam that's going to give you the closest shave ever, and you're an electric razor user,
Yeah.
It's a great product, not for me.
Yeah.
So we have to, it's really hard for public executives to really understand
Where they are.
because that may not be where they want to be.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's where you are.
Yeah.
So like, you're playing ball, win the division.
Yeah.
Then you can worry about the Super Bowl. If you don't win the division, if you can't be a wild card team, you're not going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so I really think we've recalibrated our expectations. And the other thing is credibility. I've been here 2.5 years. If you go back and look at every earnings call,
Yeah.
what we did, what we said we were going to do, we've done all of it. So I think we've built credibility. And look, man, it's a long game.
Yeah.
Quick fixes don't last. We're building this for the long game, and it's a great team. Carl's a visionary guy. Nothing makes me happier than watching a guy who's the founder of a company who watched the rocket ship go up and then the rocket ship go down. He's in there every day,
Yeah.
working 18 hours a day at this, and been very amenable to all the people who want to help fix this company, myself included. So we got a great partnership. Our CFO, Brad Ramber's been here for 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the CFO that went from $85 million to $1 billion his last stint. So we have tremendous archival knowledge mixed with a new perspective, which is how you make a great management team.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's a great place to leave it. Our guest today, Mark Goldston, Executive Chairman of the Beachbody Company, which is the parent of BODI. Mark has had an incredible career, turning around some of the best-known brands in the world. He's taken that expertise to the company and their portfolio of brands. And with financial health back in hand, net income